Shovel Knight is an indie game developed by Yacht Club Games and released for basically every modern gaming system in existence in 2014. You play as the titular Shovel Knight as he travels through perilous territories in an attempt to put a stop to the evil Enchantress and her Knights of the Order of No Quarter. It's a simple premise that works in getting the player interested in the world the characters inhabit and isn't afraid to poke fun at its own ridiculousness. The goal of the game is to get to the end of each stage, all while avoiding various death traps and slicing every enemy that dares to stand in your way. Checkpoints are also dispersed within each stage. After you pass the final stretch of each level, you are challenged by a specific Knight of the Enchantress's Order, each one with their own quirks, abilities, and weaknesses. Each level offers its own style of puzzle platforming that requires tight use of your tools and knowledge of each stage hazard. The difficulty scaling is very natural. In the beginning, you're faced with weaker enemies and few bottomless pits. Near the last half, the majority of the enemies are much more ruthless and aggressive, and some stages exist entirely over an endless chasm of death. The very first level does a good job at getting the new player acquainted with the game's rules and mechanics. Right from the start, you're greeted with a pile of dirt. Pressing the action button in front of it reveals that the piles of dirt can be unearthed to reveal treasure. Right after the dirt is a standard enemy that can be taken out with the same exact action. In this section, the only way to progress is by passing through this dirt. A simple scoop of your shovel is not enough to get it out of your way. Placing the dirt blocks over a downward directed pathway is a great way of encouraging the player to discover the bounce attack. This is because it implies that the attack is mapped to pressing down on your control stick, since that is the direction you want to be heading. Now, the rules of the game harken back to the classic 2D platformers of the NES and Super NES days. Shovel Knight has traction that isn't Mega Man levels of tight, but he isn't as slippery as, say, Luigi from Super Mario Bros. His jump covers a fair height that the level design does an excellent job of making use of. In Shovel Knight, you have two modes of attack. Pressing the attack button while moving or stationary makes Shovel Knight do a basic frontal scoop with his shovel. In the air, simply pressing down allows you to use your shovel as a lower protection that simultaneously acts as an attack as well as a bounce that can allow you to reach higher platforms that you normally wouldn't be able to do with your standard jump. Now, each one of Shovel Knight's attacks does 1 hit point, and when you attack baddies, most of them will drop a small bit of gold or treasure, and this gold is your life. When you die, you lose some. Hang on to most of your gold by the end of the stage and you will be able to keep it and use it for upgrades for health, magic, attack, and armor. Or even new weapons. Now first, let's talk about magic. It determines how many times you can use your special weapons without needing a refill. It's located in this nifty little interface on the top that gives you all the necessary information on your status. And to get more magic, just pick up the little blue beakers and pots that enemies drop. Now as for the weapons themselves, they are pretty well balanced. It's clear this feature was mainly inspired by the Mega Man games. Each weapon does the same amount of damage to an enemy and can be used in a variety of situations. What balances them is that they have their own advantages and weaknesses that force the player to think critically about the obstacles in front of them. For example, the Flare Wand allows you to shoot a fireball horizontally in one direction. Its weakness is that it disappears when it comes in contact with a wall or a chunk of dirt. The Throwing Acre makes up for this by being able to hit things through walls and ceilings. In turn, it isn't able to hit things directly in front of you or very far away, which is what the Flare Wand excels at. So basically, Shovel Knight does a good job of making each weapon feel unique and useful at the same time. Alright, now let's talk about health. The game is consistent in the fact that except for the final few stages, every attack that Shovel Knight could possibly get hit by does exactly 1/2 of a point of damage to him. This is fine. What is not fine, however, is the ridiculous amount of knockback Shovel Knight receives when he is hit by an attack. It's way worse than Mega Man in that regard. In those games, Mega Man slides back about a foot or two when he's hit. Shovel Knight not only moves backward, but he also flies in the air and is unable to move until he lands on the ground. This can result in infuriating deaths that at times feel unavoidable, and that not only send you back to your last checkpoint, but also steal your gold and leave them in unretrievable positions. What I do like is that they did, however, sacrifice the live systems for gold. Now, the knockback works as a challenging mechanic, but due to the sheer chaos that can erupt in each stage, and one stage that is completely in the dark, I feel that the game would benefit if knockback distance was reduced, and Shovel Knight could act without having to hit the ground first. Now, let's talk about Shovel Knight's presentation. Its goal is to be a faithful but modern take on classic platformers while at the same time crafting its own identity. It does this beautifully with intricate pixel art on every stage, character, and effect. It uses colors and set pieces that make you feel like you're a part of the stage itself. In this stage, you're in an abandoned laboratory. In this one, you are absolutely riding a giant beetle in a volcano. This is a haunted graveyard, and by no means should you doubt the fact that you are scaling a military-grade airship over a perilous mountain. The art style and animation itself allows for cute characters that stand out among one another. But look at this guy, he sells you weapons, but just by looking at his pose, you can tell that this man is the picture of self-confidence. And not only does the art draw you into the world, but the writing is a gem of its own. And oh man, even the music is good. I guarantee that even if you aren't one for 16-bit tunes, you'll still find yourself bobbing your head to some of these tracks. Each one does a great job of replicating and enforcing the atmosphere of its environment. They're all fast, catchy, and available to listen to outside their respective stages. Just talk to this guy. I mean, just listen to the music for the very first stage. And not only that, but there are DLC campaigns and a variety of aesthetic options you can try out once you finish the base game. They're still adding more to this day. While playing through Shovel Knight, it's clear that the developers knew exactly what kind of game they wanted to craft, and they had a blast while making it. Be it through the art style, writing, unique mechanics, engaging level design, or charming music, you can tell that there was passion put into this game. It's an experience that I would heartily replay, and one that I am replaying to this day. If I were to develop a game, I would use Shovel Knight as an inspiration for attention to detail and an example of just how much passion can have an impact on the final product.